So I do have a couple of questions for you, and one of them we've kind of touched on already, and that's to do with data. As you know, as I know, as everyone knows, data is so essential in terms of planning, making informed decisions, knowing, where we are and where we need to get to. But unfortunately, the sector and peak bodies don't have access to all of the data that DCJ has. In fact, we don't necessarily understand all of the data sets that you hold. And I think that does create this information asymmetry that's not ideal. So wondering how we can get a better handle on what data sets you hold and how we can make sure that, a peak body like NCOS and others can have access to that data so that we can plan, we can better understand what's going on in the sector, where is demand, and, prepare for the future.
So absolutely, we know that agencies are increasingly using data-driven approaches to inform their policy development, but also their service delivery. And we know there are really great benefits when we get cross-agency approaches to capitalise on investments in data across the New South Wales government, because that's what gives us the full picture. So we publish a comprehensive range of data around service delivery, and that's always available on our public-facing websites, which we know that the NGO sector frequently utilises as an evidence base for providing their services to clients. And I think that you'll be able to see some of those links sitting below that. But we're also committed to open and transparent reporting of information, and we should be consistently asking ourselves why some of the data sources that we have aren't more open and available. Of course, sometimes with some of our sensitive data, we need to wait for a period of time to make sure that it's aged appropriately. But at a contract level, we've increasingly been using performance dashboards that we share with the sector to report on the data that they provide to us. There's nothing more frustrating, I think, for agencies than putting data into DCJ and hearing nothing back. So that was one of the first questions that we wanted to answer. So this is really well developed in community housing, is developing in the permanency support program, but we are really reliant there on good data remediation. And we'll be planning for this for the specialist homelessness services. So we have a whole range of data assets, whether it's the funding and accountability information, client and dwelling information, applications for social housing, and a whole lot more that I'll make sure that we put in the email that comes with this video for people, because I think it can only give people a fuller picture of the work. The one piece that's been really interesting for me recently is the HSNet data on searches, because I think that can tell us really where clients are at and where the broader community is at.
So Simone, in relation to data, one of the areas that's been raised as requiring more of that openness and transparency is around domestic violence data. I don't know if you can add anything in respect of that.
Certainly that's been raised, and Boxar does publish data very regularly, but we think that we can do some more about putting data into dashboards so that it's broadly accessed. What I don't want to do is have data releases that only get accessed by a few groups, because I don't think that goes to the openness and transparency. So we are looking at what other data sources in the DV space can we pull together, verify through Boxar or DCJ so that we know that it's good and accurate, and then provide some commentary as well for people. So that's a piece of work that's underway at the moment.
Okay, my next question relates to the fact that, we've recently had Reconciliation Week, we've had the Black Lives Matter marches here in Australia as well as overseas, in recognition of the fact that we haven't, advanced social justice for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to the extent that's needed, and there's still massive disadvantage in those communities. But at the same time, we're reading of ABSEC losing considerable funding, and yet we know Aboriginal children and young people continue to be overrepresented in juvenile justice, in out-of-home care, in the child protection systems. And we know that poverty and disadvantage is such a major problem in those communities. So what targeted strategies is DCJ undertaking to really address those issues? and how will you be working in partnership with ABSEC in that regard?
Thanks, Joanna, and thanks for asking this question about ABSEC. So as you know, ABSEC, as one of your fellow peak organisations, is a key partner for DCJ, and ABSEC's role as the Aboriginal peak in the child and family sector is hugely valued, and we've been working together over a number of years. I am aware that a number of the recent projects that ABSEC was engaged to deliver are due to be finalised in the current financial year, and so some of those contracts will expire in June 2020. So we continue to provide core funding to ABSEC, and several projects that ABSEC is involved in will continue, including some of those where the existing contract finishes in June and that contract's being extended. This recognises the important work of ABSEC in supporting Aboriginal organisations working in the child and family sector. So the work completed by ABSEC has supported program improvements and laid some of the essential foundations for change and initiatives that will continue across the service system. But we absolutely recognise that it's more important than ever to work closely with Aboriginal communities to reduce overrepresentation, and that's one of our strategic aims in the Department of Communities and Justice. As you mentioned, Aboriginal children and young people are overrepresented in child protection and the juvenile justice system. And we continue to consider the recommendations of the Family Culture Report. So during the pandemic, if I think specifically about strategies during this time, we have wanted to make sure that we put the health and safety of Aboriginal communities first. So that's why DCJ and our NGO partners really moved quickly to deliver some of the non-essential services by phone, video calls and email, even though during that time we were responding to ROSH reports, because we needed to make sure that we could ensure the safety for children. So we have been looking at each community's individual needs and working really closely with both the New South Wales Police and also New South Wales Health and local Aboriginal land councils to ensure that our staff can support people in community, but also that NGO staff are considered essential workers and can enter those remote communities when they're needed. So our funded service providers continue to deliver services to Aboriginal communities, and also we know the New South Wales government has been working to ensure food security in those communities as well. What we hope is as the COVID restrictions reduce, that we can get more face-to-face connection with those communities as well. We know that this won't directly address the overrepresentation, but that is a piece of work that we want to make sure that we do both with ABSEC, with many of the other peaks, but also start to think across the whole of DCJ, because the justice side of our work as well has that overrepresentation issue that has been ingrained for many years. So we've tried to provide some specific guidance for Aboriginal people based on the COVID-19 website and worked regularly with ABSEC on that as well.
So Simone, you mentioned the Family's Culture Review that was undertaken by Professor Megan Davis, and that was really wide-ranging and quite a searing critique of the situation and the system as it currently is. You said you were considering the recommendations. I'm wondering when there will be a response, and given that I know some of it is complex and they're big reforms that are suggested, but some of it are initiatives and changes that could be done, that should be done, you know, immediately, or that could be started quite quickly. So yeah, just wondering when we will see a response to that review.
It's fair to say it'll be shortly. I think the thing that's really important with the Family's Culture Review is, you're right, it was comprehensive and certainly raised a whole range of issues that we have been trying to address over the life of the review rather than waiting for the final recommendations. So hopefully we'll be able to highlight some of the work that's already been underway. The other piece of work that of course is occurring both in DCJ and with our service providers is looking at the individual outcomes for the children whose circumstances were examined through the review. So that work absolutely progresses, but we look forward to being able to engage with the sector once government processes have been cleared, and that we can be really open about where we want to take the recommendations next. So I think that brings us to the end of our questions and answers that we've been mixing up today. So hopefully that's been really useful for people to hear some different perspectives, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much. Thanks, Joanna.